I worry that I oversold this one. And
I enjoyed it. Like, that's not my rating, but
yeah, that would be a crazy rating for us to start adopting immediately.
rate it right out the gate.
Yeah. Although that is an interesting idea to see if talking about it changes our rating. I think my disappointment comes from remembering it. I had only seen the movie once before we watched it for this review. And when I watched it the first time, I remember being like, this movie is dope. It's so good. Like, this was the best of them. Why did they stop making these old school Bond movies after this? And so as we have been building up to this, I was like, man, we might be in like an 8 territory for me. Like, I have never rated anything above a 7. And this might be it. So I was like, I in my head, I was just overly anticipating it. And I'm not going to rate it an 8. I'll tell you that.
It was pretty good. I think it does pull ahead a little bit from Daylights. Was Daylights the one with the rock climbing, or was that his first one?
Both. It was Timothy Dalton's first one, and it was the one that started with that spy.
Spy
No. The end of the movie, rock climbing.
Yeah, that's Udo Kill.
No, that one is. I think it's For Your Eyes Only. Because it was the Greek lady.
Oh, I guess it's not in my list. How many did Dalton do? 4?
2. Dalton did 2. He was contracted to do 3. And we can get into all of that when we actually start this thing. Roger Moore did 7. And Connery did 6.
He did the one with Fiddler on the Roof guy?
Mm-hmm. That was For Your Eyes Only.
Only did 2. Interesting. Well, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Probably about that 8 territory that you were saying, and then I only watched it once, so it was like, yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, I'll confess, I actually only watched it once as well. I didn't end up watching it last night.
Gotcha. I mean, I am ready to watch GoldenEye about 3 times just to either hate it or love it.
Yeah, that's what we're really waiting for. Hello and welcome to Potato Chip Pictures, the movie franchise review podcast looking at the 007 James Bond franchise. My name is B. Sammy Davis.
I'm Justin once again.
And once again, for the last time, we are looking at a Timothy Dalton movie. This time it is License to Kill from 1989. Not named after any of the books. We have now entered the territory where these titles and their subsequent screenplays are not tied to any of the written words.
Does that make them eligible for screenplay Oscars? Or, I mean, I don't know the categorizing that they do for that, but I wonder.
I wonder
because the Bond films are cinema.
Yeah. And so, well, we're getting to a period where most of them are not going to be named after books from here on out, with one notable exception. And I don't know if any of them have been nominated. I mean, could they have been? I don't know if any of them are worthy of being nominated for Best Original Screenplay.
Screenplay, but the one got the, like set design or something? The Moonraker, where it was all the cool, way cool effects. Yes.
And, that is usually where these movies will shine in in awards season. It will be set design, costumes, special effects, things like that really stand out and make the thing pop. But I would argue that there are a lot of actors who probably should get nominated for some of these movies. And in particular, I really liked almost everyone in this movie. In terms of License to Kill.
Maybe Lupe a little bit less. Her acting felt a little bit stilted.
Not only did it feel like the actor wasn't very good, but it felt... And maybe I'm wrong. I didn't look into the making of this movie, but it didn't seem like the voice was the voice coming out of the actress herself. And so to me, it was like,
a Goldfinger situation.
Yeah. And so I was like, two people did a bad job with this character.
It was mostly the triangle that attempted to be sold and I wasn't super convinced by it. I was also not really rooting for Lupe and Bond to end up together, but it felt like they tried to be like, that she really loves him because, he saved her life, sure, a couple times, but
so many of the posters and the marketing materials show Bond in between two women, and so like the visual representation for this movie is like, this is the love triangle movie. Like, it's gonna be so crazy. Who's Bond going to choose? And I didn't get that impression from this movie at all. Like, I always felt like Lupe was just kind of there too.
I think, she does play a few key parts in getting Bond out of jams. But
she is absolutely necessary to the plot.
Yeah.
I just don't think the love interest adds anything to this particular movie.
Can I say that underwater scenes added about 20 minutes to this movie?
I was so excited to talk about the underwater fights. I don't even remember if it was one or more fights, but I do remember multiple points being like, what is happening? Like, this is the dumbest thing.
Yeah, that part I think could have been cut. Like, most of that. I don't even know when they go underwater now. I just know they...
It's all coming back to me. It's like... Yeah. So this movie feels like two movies. And both of them are okay, but they never really come together well. And so it feels like the first movie is the Florida movie. This is where Felix is getting married, and we are essentially finally, for the fifth time, getting a closure about Bond's marriage. You know?
Oh my gosh. Let's start into the beginning because, that's the beginning does happen before the credits, so.
Yes, that's true. Well, let me really fast do my last two things that I got sidetracked on. Budget for this movie was $32 million. Return was $156.1 million.
Wow.
So it did pretty well. It performed not as well as The Living Daylights, and contemporary reviews were not as kind to this movie.
But last week, didn't we check and it was like, it came out with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and
that's right.
a billion other movies.
You had looked it up, and I kind of wish we had that list handy again because that was, we're talking 1989, a year stacked with huge movies that are like not even just big movies for that year, but big movies that have lasted and withstood the test of time.
Around the same time, it was Batman.
That's
Indiana
right.
Jones and the Last Crusade, Lethal Weapon 2, Ghostbusters 2.
But Batman, that was like the biggest movie of the year.
Pretty sure.
And that kicks off another franchise, so... Yeah, it wasn't a great move, but this ended up being the final movie for Timothy Dalton, and Richard Maybaum, one of the main writers for the franchise, as well as the director, John Glenn. This is our final time with this regular-sized James Bond.
Regular size?
Well, because before John Glenn, Bond was larger than life and fighting villains that were holding the world ransom. And then John Glenn came in and was like, let's fight drug dealers for a while.
It's not villains that capture space shuttles.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a bit of charm. We've had 5 movies with this guy. Not all of them have been particularly great, and some of them have been downright bad. But I think, I don't know, I think during the Timothy Dalton period, it really worked for him. I think a third movie would have been great. Having another Timothy Dalton with John Glenn as the director, I think that would have been fantastic.
I think with a couple of exceptions in this one, the motivation for Bond felt very clear and simple to agree with. I'm like, he's already licensed to kill, so he can do whatever he needs to. But his friends get injured in the beginning, and it all just becomes revenge. And then that even kind of gets a little twist later, where he gets criticized by, I can't remember her name, by making it all about the revenge that he's trying to seek. It felt like Bond could bounce between vengeful and then kind of bring it back towards, I gotta nail things down. I can't just be a loose cannon and take my revenge. Like, he does get it, but it made it more enjoyable. It's like, sometimes Bond gets shown around the villain lair or whatever. Yeah, I guess in Sean Connery time. But
I think some people showed Roger Moore around as well. Like he got a few tours.
The Gator Pond.
Yeah.
But Bond doesn't. His motivation doesn't seem odd. Like, why are you helping out this drug dealer who wants you to marry his daughter? Like, it was hard to get the motivation, but in the beginning of this one, if we hit the intro and the after credits, Bond is on a mission, or no, he's not on a mission, he's in a car dressed up to be a groomsman, and I couldn't quite tell whose wedding it was initially.
Yes.
I don't know when I eventually figured it out, other than Della being... I felt like her last name was already Lighter or something, because I was like, wait, are they already married, or what's going on? Bond is maybe one of the best men for Felix, but they have to capture Sanchez because Sanchez finally showed up. They pull a Dark Knight Rises and
capture. It's a very cool capture the plane.
It's a very cool capture the plane that felt very reminiscent of a future movie that must have been inspired by this one.
With a much bigger plane and more moving pieces. But yes, as I was watching it, I also was like, so this is where Dark Knight Rises got their idea. Like, that is dope. Two things to say about this opening sequence. I am going to say this kind of points to my theory that the closer the opening sequence is to the main plot, the worse everything turns out at the end. And I'm not going to say this is a bad movie because we're not to the ratings yet, and I don't know if I could justify calling it a bad movie, especially when we get talking about it. But I do think that had this been something completely disconnected, and then we got, I don't even know if we need it. I don't know. Clearly, the movie is working on telling a complete story. I don't know how to change it. All I know is that this sequence is directly connected to the rest of the movie, and the rest of the movie isn't the best in the world, and therefore it's the intro's fault.
It must be the intro.
And then the other thing I'll point out is I was kind of shocked at how violent the affair scene was when Lupe is caught and her boyfriend Franz Sanchez, played by Robert Davey. I know him from the Goonies. He was
Goonies.
brothers.
Apparently he was in Die Hard. I'm like, I think I kind of remember your face.
So, pretty big character actor, but at the same time, pretty big for this time period, to the point where I'm like thinking of other movies he's in. And then he's straight whipping a woman. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening?
It's a good contrast to, at least in this one, Bond doesn't like slap any women or anything else, I don't think.
Yeah, I think it's all the bad guys who do
this. Bad guy is bad, and man, he gets captured. He's sure he's going to get away. He's essentially blamed his capture on Felix and Bond and Sharky, who's the police chief in Last Action Hero. I was like, awesome. Yeah. I love this guy. I don't know anything else he's in except Last Action Hero and now this.
Last Action Hero, remember, dear listener, canonically, that is a movie that both of us really enjoy. And unfortunately, we'll never get to review it for this show because it's not part of a franchise.
They should reboot that. Make a second one with... Doesn't he have a kid or something? I don't know if he's an actor.
Yeah, I don't know. But I agree. For our benefit, they should either reboot or make a sequel.
A second one. Schwarzenegger can be the police chief.
Yeah.
I think it was so good. And the dance guy, Charles Dance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, he was like, I wouldn't have ever watched this James Bond in particular, but watching Last Action Hero, man, he was a wonderful villain. Just supposed to be larger than life because it's a satire, but man, it's amazing.
He hits it.
Anyway,
that's our micro review of Last Action Hero. Highly recommended. I think I'm okay with the opening theme song.
It's all right.
I'm
less okay.
Yeah, like I feel kind of bad for skipping over a lot of the intro, but really the best thing about the intro is the capturing a plane mid-air a la Dark Knight Rises. And it is connected to the plot in that they are going to a wedding. And when this opening title sequence is finished, they will be at that wedding. But I think it's Gladys Knight who did this opening theme song. And
maybe.
I kind of like it. Like, what do you do with something called License to Kill? Like, a lot of these weirdly titled movies will just avoid it altogether. And no, not here. We got Gladys Knight with License to Kill.
No, it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't too jazzy, but I don't know that I will remember it in the future.
Same.
Unless I catch the chorus somehow.
Yeah, like I think if I hear it, I might be like, hey, that's a James Bond theme song, but it's not going in the like songs.
I halfway wondered if Felix was marrying Goodnight, just because she kind of looked like her, and then Della, her name, is like all over Bond. I was uncomfortable for him, and for her new husband. Like, I feel like it was meant to make the friendship a bit more serious, because Della and Felix get jumped as soon as Bond leaves, and Felix gets carried off, but Della, we find out she ends up dead after like 5 minutes of screen time.
Yep.
It was disappointing because she seemed like she could be a helpful character, but man, immediately dead.
I guess that's just what happens to super spies. They get married, and the day of their wedding, their wife gets killed. Like, whether you're CIA or MI6,
well,
them's the rules.
I don't know. I think if she was just killed, then she didn't have to suffer as much as Felix. Felix gets his leg bitten off after confronting the villain. It was like, I kind of wondered if there would be more, because man, this one goes hard with the blood and violence.
Yeah. This movie initially was rated R.
I was gonna guess, yeah.
And apparently, when the 4K remaster was made, a lot of the more violent sequences were put back into the movie. So I know I have seen 2 different versions of this film because I watched it on television in like either the late 90s or early 2000s. And so it would have been the theatrical cut that was reduced down to a PG-13. But then I'm watching this one and I'm like, this movie is brutal.
Yeah. Like, leg gets chopped off. He gets put back into the house that they took him from with his leg chopped off. I was expecting him to be dead because it was a shark attack, and Felix isn't necessarily integral to whatever's coming. Like, even without watching it, I felt like, oh, well, he ends up recovering in the hospital room throughout the rest of the movie, right?
Yeah, and I get the impression that he is missing both of his legs at some place on his legs, and so I'm interested if he's ever going to come back. Like, when the reboot happens, will he come back? Will he have both his legs? Like, it moves pretty fast. I gotta say, like, the wedding sequence, the most distracting part for me is that I could not get On Her Majesty's Secret Service out of my head. And I just kept thinking, like, wow, this is like a reverse version of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where Bond starts with the wedding scene, and then the bride gets killed, and that kicks off the revenge story, and then that will kick off the love story. And so I was just so distracted early on in this movie where I just couldn't stop thinking about the wedding sequence from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. They even rub it in your face at one point because who'd you say her name was? Della? Yeah. Della says, like, here, catch the bouquet so you can get married next time, or something like that.
Oh no, it's not the bouquet.
Yeah, it's the
She's
garter.
Like out on the steps before they get jumped back in the house. She's like, I've got a gift for you, and like hikes the little slit in her dress and hands it to him, and Felix is just there grinning like an idiot. I'm like, what is this relationship you guys have going on?
Okay.
Because I think she even kisses him at some point on the wedding day.
Yes. And a few people even make reference of, I came here to kiss the bride. And it's like, oh, this is so gross. And it makes me remember there was a time early in my childhood when I would watch adults full on kiss each other. Like my dad, who is married, would go to a party, like, or a house party. There would be a bunch of guests there, and someone would introduce their wife, and he would full on kiss her on the lips. And this was just a normal thing that adults would do. And I was so skeeved out by it. I was like, this is just so inappropriate. Why are you people doing this? And
quite this a handshake, guys.
Yeah, like, this movie really, like, brought me back to that time period where I was like,
interesting.
I was so uncomfortable with this as a kid, and now I'm watching it happening on the television. Like, what?
Well, I mean, I guess that gives a little bit of context.
Yeah,
and Felix is on his computer during his wedding.
He goes to work.
Caring about getting married.
Well, I guess that makes sense. On his way to his wedding, he went and arrested a dude. Like,
yeah. I gotta work.
He never puts his work down. But, you know, the movie really like it gets us in there pretty quickly. So when it becomes time for Bond to start solving a mystery, like I feel like the movie proper begins when MI6 comes down to Florida and M is there to confront Bond. And Bond has a very dramatic quitting scene where he's like, well, I quit. And I loved when M was like, this isn't a country club. Like, you don't quit, you die.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what happens. Oh, yeah, because that M part happens reasonably quick because nothing else is really happening. We do gloss over Benicio del Toro saying honeymoon. It was odd.
I loved Dario, played by Benicio del Toro, and it's because he is one of the worst villains in the movie, and that makes him charming. Like, to me, this is on par with A View to a Kill, where, like, the villains have a blimp, and for some reason, I think that's rad. But he's very young in this movie. He will not be winning an Oscar for this particular performance.
Oh, well, then after he quits, essentially he's given up your license to kill. So you're a rogue agent or whatever. Kind of plays in later, but we cut to Lupe on a boat with secondary bad guy.
Now, at some point, I thought before this, but I could be wrong because I don't remember a lot from this movie, but at some point Bond did infiltrate where Felix had been tortured. There's a very light action sequence. He's nearly caught, but it does disrupt that entire facility. And I seem to remember that being the launching point for this other villain getting introduced, where he's like, that was my place. Like, what are you guys doing?
He is in there when Bond comes looking. Bond sneaks in. There's like a guard that unloads his MP5 submachine gun, but since Bond sneaks away, it's like a must have been the wind type situation. Like, oh, where'd that come from?
Oh, man. Well, and really the only reason I want to bring this up is because at some point after that infiltration, Sharky was killed off screen.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And Bond...
I was hoping he wasn't dead.
Yeah, like, I was kind of mad about it, too. I was like, why is it whenever we've got a really cool black character who is backing up Bond, we got to kill him off or sideline him, like send him somewhere else entirely. But he didn't even get to die on screen, and that, that was weak.
He only has half as much revenge motivation as Bond.
Yeah.
He didn't get
does
kissed
get
from
the
Della.
revenge at some point when he's like, this is for Sharky on that boat that we're now at.
Yeah, he harpoons the guy. Oh, yeah. It's like, okay, well, I think that's what I appreciated most about this movie, Bond. It felt like he did at least care about these other characters on his team, and that them being injured or dying was like, okay, so he's getting closer to the guy that killed him, and he's setting things up to take his revenge. So I enjoyed the fact that maybe this one is a little more one-dimensional, maybe, but it was more coherent than other plots.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you because after you said that, I was trying to remember so many other times when Bond met with Felix specifically, and they were either kind of rivals to, like, friendly rivals, or Bond was kind of I don't know, a little arrogant and kind of condescending and dismissive, but this time there's a genuine friendship between James Bond and Felix Leiter. And so, yeah, I do kind of buy the revenge plot because we finally got Bond who cares about his colleagues.
Yeah.
So I'm into that.
I don't think, and I think even the beginning where the Leiter's going after Sanchez and catches him, Bond is kind of sidelined as a, what they call him, like a ride-along. He's there to observe. I think they call him observer or something. But he's not really interested in Sanchez. He's there for the wedding, and his friend gets hurt, and so it's less of a mission and more of a personal quest.
Mm-hmm. And really, his only involvement in capturing Sanchez is, in my opinion, just to kind of get the wedding started, where he's like, we're late. We did gloss over it when Bond is on the boat before he, reveals himself for the action sequence that I kind of jumped ahead to. He meets with Lupe. And this is like right after Lupe has been whipped by Sanchez, but she's now with this other guy. I think his name is Milton Crest.
Yep.
Yeah. And Crest is just this American drug lord, I guess. Like, he's not part of the organization, but he views himself as a partner to Sanchez. And he is probably closest to Sanchez in terms of the drug organization. But I also get the impression that Crest views himself as an independent person. The point being that, like, they have a very awkward conversation where Crest is hitting on Lupe, and I'm just sitting here thinking, my dude, you of all people know that not a half an hour earlier there was another guy who was brutally murdered for liking Lupe and having it reciprocated. Imagine if she doesn't like you. Like, she can rat you out, my dude.
Yeah. It felt a little forced, but it also made me feel like Crest is, old Bond. He's gonna get drunk and make a pass at you. And not get punished for it until later.
Yep. And oh boy, will he be. That's going to be exciting. But,
Bond shoots the guy with the harpoon, and in my notes I wrote that Bond is furious, and I dig it.
He goes berserker mode. He flies into a rage. He has his wild magic. Like, he is ready to go. And, I didn't get anything out of his scene with Lupe. I felt sympathetic for Lupe the whole time. I'm like, all right, Crest is a jerk, and then this other guy comes in, and he's also a jerk, but at least, neither of them were going after her. And then Bond is slaughtering dudes left and right, and he dives into the water, and we have... maybe an overly long underwater sequence.
I think the only thing that they needed to do was Bond getting to the plane that had the money, so that Bond could eventually have that money to frame Crest later on. Aside from that, like, he's outrunning these motorboats, other scuba people, and it's a little unbelievable because he just dove into the water. Just go to that spot.
And the plane has just finished their drug deal. Like, the plane is getting ready to leave at the time that he decides to dive into the water and have a 20-minute fight.
Yeah. At least he gets to water ski behind the plane with the harpoon gun. I don't quite remember how it got on the plane, but
it was a lucky shot. So there are two things about the underwater fight that bother me the most, and they're both right at the end. There are these two scuba divers. They are descending upon Bond. The first one comes up, and he's got a loaded harpoon gun. And so naturally what you do with a pointed weapon is you use the holdy part in order to strangle the person that you're... And so Bond is eventually able to get to it, but before he can get to it, another guy comes up with a knife, and Bond's arms are dealing with a spear gun choking him, so he's not protecting his midsection. So naturally, the guy with the knife cuts the airline and not Bond in the chest. Like, so both of those parts, I was really angry. I was just like, guys, you both had the perfect opportunity, but Bond is somehow able to wrestle the spear gun free and have a lucky shot on the plane that leads to him water skiing behind the plane. It's ludicrous.
I mean, I guess it kind of does play into Crest when he's getting framed.
Yeah.
Telling the impossible story of this British guy slaughtering his crew and evading capture and then taking the money. So, I mean, I guess okay, but that's stretching.
Yes, that is the justification for everything that we see in this fight sequence, is that it is so ludicrous that when Sanchez hears it from Crest, Sanchez won't believe him because it's just too bizarre of a story. But we watched it with our own eyeballs and I was like, this is too bizarre. Like, we could trim a little bit of this and make it a bit more realistic. John Glenn, you're the guy who wanted realistic Bond. Like, come on. But, you know, that ends kind of the first movie, and I was okay with it. I was like, this is interesting. It's moving pretty fast. We've got an angry, vengeful Bond who is, you know, out on a mission to kill. And even though he is resigned from his position and therefore no longer has a license to kill, he's still the guy. He's still used to be 007 James Bond, and we're about to go see what a rogue agent can do. And this is where the second movie starts. And
after the cool stunt on the plane, or not?
Yeah, like he flies. He's not all the way out of Florida yet. I think he goes to an island or something. Like he finds the pilot who used to work for Felix while Felix was trying to find Sanchez, and they devise a plan to infiltrate the island and get onto it's not a real island, it's a made-up nation for this movie. I've already forgotten what it was called.
Me too.
Yeah, like I would have remembered if they had, like, I don't know, given us a isthmus. That's what it was.
Oh yeah, isthmus. Yeah,
I had to look.
I kind of thought that was Panama, but like,
no,
I didn't even recognize that it was a made-up place. I was like, maybe it's a city.
So I don't remember where Pam Bouvier is when they meet, but I thought he had left.
It's a dancer bar.
Yes.
Like there's a dancer in the middle of the room. I don't know why he gets there necessarily. I don't know how he gets there.
Well, he finds her on Felix's files. So he did some good spy work. He remembered where Felix left his files, and he was like, I wonder if anybody else found them. I'm just going to go check. Sure enough, no one did. And so he learns that there were several moving parts between the DEA, because remember, Felix no longer works for the CIA. Right. He now works for the DEA. But the DEA had a bunch of people inside Sanchez's organization, including Pam Bouvier, a pilot who would sometimes do some drug running for Sanchez for the DEA. Okay. So he knows that she usually hangs out at this bar because of the file. Or, no, I am wrong. He sees the file and there's a specific note that says meet at this place after midnight. And I remember now.
Didn't write that down because it didn't seem very important. But
yeah, it's not. It really isn't. The only important thing to this entire scene is that sure enough, Sanchez's men are at the bar, including Benicio del Toro. And they start a bar fight.
But Bond, he has to order a bar menu drink. Yes. He can't get a martini, I assume.
What did he order? Did he order a beer?
A Bud with lime.
That's right. Which, I'll be honest with you. You can win me over to pretty much any beer by adding citrus to it, whether it be lemon, lime, orange. Any beer suddenly becomes incredible once citrus enters the mix.
So, having placed and met Pam here, we saw her one time originally. I think from here on, it's kind of a nice bonus, or it's a nice plus to my rating to see her develop and kind of reveal character bits to her, because I think she asks him if he's armed because she sees Sanchez, people's coming in, and he's like, yeah, of course, I got, like, I can't remember what he says necessarily, but she's like, either he asks her, but she shows him this giant Terminator shotgun that she has under the table. I'm like, how did you smuggle that into your chair?
How did you keep it on your person? Like,
right.
Where in your clothing were you hiding that?
She proceeds to do the same as the harpoon guy though, and during the fight, she only uses it to, like, brace against stuff and fight with the blunt sides of it instead of shooting people.
I think felt she like with shoots it to blow a hole in the wall, and that's the only time it's actually fired. Like,
with how much violence there was and blood already, I was kind of expecting more shotgun shots to hit people.
Yeah.
But not quite so much. She gets shot in the back as they try to escape. But
oh, yeah. And it looks brutal. But turns out she's okay. What really took me out of this sequence was, our previous movie hearing that not only was Bond sniper certified, but he is recognized as one of the best shots in the world. And yet he cannot hit Benicio del Toro through this paper-thin wall that he shoots at twice. And I'm just like, one of those bullets had to have hit him. Like, come on. He was right. At least his shoulder should have been nicked by one of those holes. But whatever. He's Bond. He knows what he's doing. And I guess, nearly getting killed is enough to get Pam on Bond's side.
Even more than just on his side. They're just talking after she's like, oh, the Kevlars saved her from getting shot in the back. And, like, it felt very abrupt, but she's leaning in to kiss him. And the sunset silhouettes them going below deck, and it's like, wait.
Yes.
You guys just met, and okay. It kind of has to happen for, I don't know.
I had, exercised that from my brain because I had completely forgotten. Then, so I'm scrolling through some of the plot because I'm like, what is he talking about? And then the picture accompanying it is them getting ready to make out and go under, into this very tiny boat, but they're going to go into it.
They have to make up their plan. They went downstairs to plan.
That's it. It's
their next cover. Because she's in for a penny and in for a pound. She's gonna help him trick this guy. Yeah. But when they go to deposit the money, is that it? They deposit the money, and she has to act as his secretary.
But we don't want to miss it. There is one very tiny but very important scene that's going to happen before we get to the plan, because it's a dope plan. I love the plan, and I want to give it its time. It might be my favorite part of this movie, them finally revealing the plan to us, and I'm like, wow, Bond, you could be quite the awful bad guy. But the scene that I'm stopping everything for is in England. Miss Moneypenny, our new Miss Moneypenny, who has, been the new girl for a couple of movies. She's really upset, and she's mad at M. She's like, how could this happen? And M's like, look, he's James Bond. He is literally a super spy. He is the best there is. But if you're so worried about him, why don't we send Q Branch a memo to say, hey, Bond is alone in the field. Can you maybe send him some gadgets or something? And like, it's such a small, subtle scene, but it's going to end up being one of my favorite parts of the movie. Like, there are like two things in this movie that really shine, and both of them are coming up.
Okay.
But yes, then we get to Isthmus, where Pam takes Bond to the casino, and she explains how everything is run. Apparently the bank and the casino are both owned by Sanchez. The president is mostly just there as an honorary title. Like, Sanchez really is the one in charge of everything. But yeah, you go ahead. You were saying. You were saying.
I'm trying to place it because I think I may have missed. I know I missed that noting on that M's and Moneypenny after the silhouette shot when Bond is introducing Pam as a secretary. She gets to stare super daggers at him. Like, how dare you make me your secretary? And it made me enjoy her characters because it felt like I kind of forgot that they had already, like, seduced each other.
And she has a pretty major appearance change. Like, right between sequences, because she cuts off all her hair.
I feel like the daggers set that up to be so much nicer. Like, hey, I absolutely despise what you set up our cover as. Yeah. And, like, this is a revenge of her own sort on Bond, who is so bent on revenge he hasn't quite looked... I guess what would the word be? He hasn't quite considered Pam as a super helpful person.
Yeah,
like
she's not an
secretary.
Equal. She's a liability to him at this point. He's like, in his head, he's like, this was a name of someone that Sanchez is after. I guess I have to keep her safe. But he came seeking her because she's a pilot and she knows the organization. Like, it's on Bond for underestimating her. Like, clearly she knows what she's doing. Felix trusted her, and Felix is one of your closest friends. Like, come on.
And before the transformation, before she cuts her hair and gets like high-end secretary clothes, he does say something about it being a man's world, and it just felt like a shot at whatever feminism was happening in the 80s, 89. So I'm like, that's an interesting choice of words, Bond. Like, she doesn't actually have to keep helping you, you know?
Yeah, like, she's got a license to fly, and she could just fly away. Like, you ain't got a license to do anything anymore, my dude.
I did feel like her appearance, having only watched this the first time, I do feel like I had seen that Bond girl image of her coming in her black and white get up and short, very cute hair. Like,
oh yeah,
Bond does a double take, which I assume is the audience supposed to be like, well, she is rocking a pixie cut. It looks really good.
Yes. I really like her short hair. And the first time I watched it, I think I got confused and thought that this was a whole new lady.
Person? Oh.
Yeah, but I was a kid. I didn't know any better. And so watching it as an adult and having a fully developed brain and seeing that this is the same face with a different haircut, I was like, oh, wow. Like, that's pretty rad. We don't usually have a major appearance change mid-movie.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it was an excellent independent move of hers. Like, Bond said, yeah, we'll get new clothes and get into our cover stories. But she's like, well, all right, sounds good. Gonna surprise him. And it was awesome. I think I enjoy her as a character, and I don't know if she's what general reception of her character is in Bond girl, I guess, rankings, but she's she's cool. I felt like the shotgun made it a little bit like Terminator.
Yeah.
And she seems competent in most of the things that I can remember her doing.
Mm-hmm. She gets mixed receptions. Some people really like her, and it's for the scenes that are really good, and some people really dislike her, and it's for the scenes where she's really dumb. And there are, unfortunately, many scenes, including right away in the casino, where Bond orders her to get the drink, and she goes to the bartender and physically motions shaken, not stirred. And it's so distracting, and I have seen it in memes, or GIFs rather. I have seen that particular image. It is seared into my memory as one of the dumbest things a Bond girl does on screen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Not Bond ordering a Bud with lime. Okay.
That's American. He's like us.
I guess.
But, Bond starts his villainous scheme against Sanchez, and I love it. I think it is absolutely brilliant. If you want, we can go through it quickly, or we can go through it as it is unveiled to us. If we do it that way, I will say all we know is that Bond has all that money that he stole from Crest, and he is now depositing it into the bank that, is connected to the casino, and he's going to take out credit from the casino to gamble. He takes an entire blackjack table and just starts racking up wins. Like, he's, probably earning another $250,000 or whatever the amount was.
It's a nice change from needing to see Bond be good at whatever card game he's playing. It's like, oh, he's winning. Like, we don't need to belabor the point.
Yeah.
Like, I think Casino Royale does kind of similar, where in 6 seconds he goes from bad to chip leader, and it's like, I'm fine with that. I don't need to know anything more than the climactic card, the hand. So
yeah, I barely even need to know that, because chances are I don't know the rules for the game. Like, if it's Baccarat, I don't know the rules. You don't have to show me what's on the cards, because I believe you. He won. But with this one, it is that trope. Like, we cut to Bond setting up the table where he's like, close this table. Nobody else gets to play here. I am playing every seat at the table. And he starts out with just a humble amount of chips, but when Pam comes back, every single seat at the table has a big stack of chips. And it's just oh, Bond, you...
I will say I didn't quite understand that Sanchez did not associate Bond with Leiter or Sharkey.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that he had seen him at some point. And so, this whole plan unravels if he did know him, but he doesn't know him. So it's like Sanchez will get drawn into we're making money, and I'm actually more than just a gambler. But I think he's winning, and to stop him from winning, Sanchez sends Lupe, who Bond had already met on the boat, to be the dealer, and Bond starts losing.
Well, and he even announces it. She comes up to take it, and he's like, let me guess. And now I start losing. And she's like, yeah, how did you know? You should quit. And I think he plays one more hand, loses, and then quits. So he's not so arrogant that he thinks he can beat the dealer. Like, he knows when he's losing. And that's when the thugs show up and take him to Sanchez. And I gotta be honest, maybe it was that subconscious knowledge that I had seen this movie in the past, but I had been paying attention, and I noticed in that opening sequence there was a point where Sanchez was trying to see who Bond was, but clearly could not see him because he just kept moving around.
Details like that, I think, are in this because it kind of feels like a complete thought out story that you can find where he doesn't see Bond.
Yeah, and the ridiculous underwater action sequence becomes like a very important part of the story. Like, it is so pivotal that underwater sequence happens exactly the way it happens, because that's the only way Crest looks like a crazy person.
Yeah.
It doesn't justify it. I still hate it.
Yeah, it's still kind of like, interesting. Yeah.
But, we're now leading Sanchez. He is the new Mark. The movie is a revenge plot to kill him. But if we were thinking of this as like an Ocean's 11, this is where Danny Ocean is meeting the owner of the casino. Like, Bond knows he's going to rip this guy off. He knows he's going to ruin his life, but the other guy doesn't.
where I thought Sanchez might have known him, I was starting to wonder at this point, what movie are we getting into now? Because there's like a meditation guru that's taking orders for prices of cocaine to be sent, and that part got confusing to me, but it was kind of the intro to the drug dealing side of
well, and I think the confusion is on purpose. It's intentional, because it's like 10 minutes of watching this televangelist where you're like, why is a drug kingpin and all of his top lieutenants watching someone on like an NPR donor drive? Like, this is crazy. And then at one point, Sanchez's number 2, the business partner, is like, that's $500,000 from so-and-so. And that was when I was like, this is brilliant. This is so cool.
It works pretty well as a plan. And I feel like that maybe that's a little bit contrary to later on Pam being like, you can't just focus on revenge. It's like, well, he's got a really good plan for his revenge.
I kind of think he can just focus on revenge, because right now his plan is pretty dope. But yeah, Bond gets to meet Sanchez, and he essentially says everything that is true, where he's like, I used to be a secret agent. I used to work for... awesome. Yeah, he's like, I used to work for the MI6. I was a 00 agent. I am world famous for my license to kill and for my ability to get stuff done. But hey, guess what? I got fired. So, you hiring, bro? And I was like, this is awesome.
And I love it because he's talking to him, and before that, or maybe it's before that, at some point Sanchez is like, look into this guy, because like no red flags are apparent, but suspicions are raised. When the guy that he asked gets back to him, Bond by that time had already told him, like, oh, I'm a spy at MI6. And so Sanchez has a decent amount of pride from, like, his paranoia, and dismisses the guy being like, oh, like, I know things. He was a British agent, and the guy, whatever information he had, gets stopped from revealing Bond too early. And I enjoy that because it's like a thread that gets closed and pays off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those bits of subtle genius in this movie. Like, there's so much about this movie that is kind of average or bad, but then you get these little moments where you're like, wow, someone had a really good idea, and I'm glad I got to see it happen. And a lot of this early Isthmus stuff are where most of my good ideas are, where I'm just like, wow, that was so cool. That was a good idea. And we're getting to my next favorite part of this movie. When Bond is dismissed, he goes back to his hotel, and he quickly realizes that something's wrong. And so he breaks in to beat up whoever has, somehow sabotaged his place. And he beats up an old man. Because it's his uncle, Q.
Let your uncle into your room. Like, oh.
Yes. Like, what? Why would anyone... Okay, number A, how do you know he's my uncle? Why did you just let him into my room? And then on top of that, like, is that how you work with every guest? Like, if someone comes in with a convincing enough line, you'll just let them in?
We don't know Q's background. Maybe he was a 00.
Yeah, like, I think there's more to Q than we let on. I get okay, this is only going to work for my Star Trek fans, but I get vibes of O'Brien. Chief O'Brien. When we first meet him in The Next Generation.
Curly hair guy?
Yes. And he's an officer he's a commissioned officer. He gets multiple roles because at first he's just an extra that the studio likes, and so they keep bringing him back. And then eventually they give him a name, but they don't know what he should be, so they give him a name and a rank. And then they're like, nah, he shouldn't have a rank. Let's make him like an enlisted guy who's closer to like a civilian. And he won't be an officer, but he'll be an engineer. And that's why he eventually becomes Chief Engineer O'Brien, and he goes into Deep Space Nine. And it's as the character grows that you realize there's more to this guy than we knew. Like, we thought he was just an engineer, but turns out he was also in the war, and he fought dudes hand to hand, and he's got a little PTSD. Like, this guy's dope. And I think the exact same thing about Q. I don't think you get to be a secret agent inventor without having first been out in the field.
That's reasonable. Does he initially... He shows him the tech as soon as he gets there. Yeah,
like,
but
he gets
Pan busts
tackled.
in.
Yeah.
After giving him a smaller gun with a bigger gun.
Yeah. I think this is one of those movies where these gadgets are almost inconsequential to the movie because I think every single one of them is used in the next scene. And yet they've all got something to them that kind of makes them pop to me. I'm like, that's cool. That's cool. That's way cool. A fingerprint gun, like, that's going to be rad. And so understated, but at the same time, I like them. I thought they were fun.
I'm trying to think of where they... Okay... She accidentally hits the laser.
Yeah, I was going to say, the only one that's not used is the comedic one. It's another one of those Pam moments that people point to be like she's the worst because she just got showed all of these highly deadly gadgets, and then she's like, hey, cheese, everybody. So that's... I don't think that laser camera ever gets used except for that joke.
Yeah, I can't recall it happening. I was trying to think of what happens. They get the equipment. Oh, the guy has a meeting with Mortal Kombat guy.
That's where he was
drugs.
from. Oh man, I kept looking at this guy and I was like, he is so familiar. How do I... I never like look up actors during movies, and then I just forgot. You're right. That was it? I can't even remember the name of... He's the main boss from the first Mortal Kombat. And
Shao something? I was going to say Shere Khan, but that's Jungle Book.
Yeah, and I was going to say something that was I was going to say Shang-Chi from Marvel, and I was like, nope, that's not right either. So... Neither of us can remember the villain's name, but he's a very good one.
At this point, Bond is trying to get... Oh, yeah. Okay, so they're trying to make the revenge happen right now.
Yes. He is going to complete his mission in this
He totally
next
does
scene.
Some, like, Hitman spy video game work.
Yes!
Dresses up like the dude, walks the tray of stuff in, gets the thing, and heads on up. And it's like, oh, it's such a small part of what you get Bond on film for, but I enjoy that sort of
so
misdirection.
Smooth. Yes.
Disguise.
It's just such a great sequence of events that are like, this is why James Bond is a super spy. And to be frank, this entire next sequence, even though it ends in failure, I think makes for some of the best James Bond scenes that Timothy Dalton does. Like every one of them, I'm like, that's a really good James Bond. That looks exactly like I pictured James Bond should look like. Like this assassination attempt, even though it fails, it's probably peak James Bond for Timothy Dalton. He's got the look, he's got the swagger, he's got everything in this sequence of events. I love it so much. But you know, we kind of hinted to it as the assassination, the Hitman style assassination is going down. Sanchez is setting up a meeting with a bunch of Eastern Asian drug lords. They use the racist term for Eastern Asian peoples, so we're not gonna repeat it here. But that is the meeting that's going down, and one of the people there, of course, is from the Nether Realm, and he is putting together a tournament. He needs some people from Earth Realm.
Fighters.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I'm just so hung up on the fact that I didn't realize that was the dude from Mortal Kombat.
Like, and I think I watched Mortal Kombat like once forever ago, like you did with this one.
Yeah.
I think they excused them to a room full of women. They're all dressed and enjoying like hors d'oeuvres and whatnot. But then Bond is across the way with his handprint gun to shoot Sanchez, and he sees Pam talking with the guy second in command. And I think I don't quite understand why she went in. I can't recall.
Absolutely gets explained, and I don't remember
right why. I think it does, because he's like, why were you there?
It is a big deal, and it is a point of major conflict between Pam and Bond later in the movie when Bond doesn't know if he can trust her. And I do remember, it is explained that the second in command had wanted to flip. When Felix was still a part of this thing, he had been in talks with Pam and Felix. They were going to put together a deal, and he was going to make the flip. But upon seeing Bond and Pam together, he was talking to Pam about how he doesn't want to, like, it's too hot right now. Like, I just have to keep my head down, no more DEA stuff. But we don't hear any of that. We see Bond panning over to see Pam and this guy having a heated conversation. And he's like, she's going to out me. Like, so it is a good misdirect. And it's only because they have that explicit conversation. And I had to think of it that we do actually get an answer. But we also learn that one of the Eastern Asian businessmen, one of the drug lords, will not go forward with the deal unless he gets a chance to tour the facilities. And that's our first hint that the dude from Mortal Kombat may not actually be a drug lord.
He wants to see it.
Yeah, like why would a drug lord need to see it? But apparently all of them want to see it, because if one of them says it, the rest of them are like, yeah, I want to see it.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Yeah, let's check this out.
So I feel like, I should have made the connection earlier because it's kind of telegraphed. Bond tries to get a shot off, but he gets attacked by a ninja. And then he gets attacked by a second ninja. And ninjas are from East Asia, so obviously when he gets kidnapped by these ones, he shows up to the undercover DEA guy, Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
To be held until he can get sent off, because there's also a British agent guy, and I was not sure who was jumping Bond in the first place. I was like, wait, who are these people?
It was so jarring to have the Deus Ex Machina be ninjas. I was just like, what is happening?
Yes.
But what kind of took it out for me was that I immediately went to You Only Live Twice when Tiger was talking about his ninja army. And I was like, oh, is this Tiger? Like, are we back in Japan? No, the guy's from Hong Kong. He's part of the Hong Kong narcotics unit. He's completely unrelated. I didn't even know that Hong Kong had ninjas, but apparently they do. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, they have Bond captured, and they want to essentially get him out of the way because the DEA guy is gonna get evidence, or like they're still working on their part of the case. So Bond needs to not be here.
It further proves that Bond has a brilliant cover, because even the British agent who like is there is like, look, I respect you, but like we're gonna turn you in. That's why we've got you tied up on this table, and that all works to Bond's advantage. Like, oh my gosh, this movie is really, everything is put together so tightly that if you're not paying attention, you miss it. And Bond didn't control getting tied up. He didn't control the situation there. But
so his cover is just fine, because the accidentally guys get trigger happy and shoot with tanks. However they found them remains a mystery. But they got tanks there to blow everything up, and Bond gets discovered and rescued by Sanchez and wakes up in a palace. And I questioned whether he was dreaming for a second, because like you see them find him and he's like, I don't know if they ask him then, because I feel like he's still knocked out.
Yeah.
But he essentially explains, the truth. They were tying me up, and
they wanted me out of the way. They had their mission, and I was in the way, so they caught me and tied me up. 100% true.
It all builds to, I can't remember if it's right then that Bond drops the paranoia into Sanchez's ear in that someone else is trying to kill you, and let me help you figure out what is going on.
Because like someone has to know your organization for them to get this close. Ugh.
And it works because Sanchez at that point is like, no, everybody's 100% loyal, but you can feel later on that he's like, well, it's iffy, because like when you're a violent crime lord, imagine not everybody wants to just die at your whim, so somebody might be plotting against you at any given point.
And like, when the seed of doubt is planted, to the actor's credit, I always forget the actor's name. I'm going to look it up really fast. Robert Davi. To Robert Davi's credit, he plays the role differently from that point on. And everyone he's looking at, he has this kind of double take, or like a suspicious look in his eyes for everyone. And that suspicion is going to eat at him, and it's going to cause him to make mistakes. But right now, in his eyes, everything he has seen has been verified and factual. This 00 agent came in and started winning a bunch of money after depositing a huge chunk of change. He's no longer with the spy organization that he was with, but some undercover cops from Hong Kong thought it important enough to capture him and tie him down and nearly kill him. And now he's in your pad saying, you've got a traitor in the organization. Like, that is like, all of the soil has been tilled, and now that seed of doubt is ready to be planted. And I gotta tell you, my rating has just gone up in my head.
We're not to the ratings yet, but it is a contender for hitting the ceiling of my rating so far, because Moonraker got a high score, Secret Service got a high score, and I think Moonraker, I remember being like, I don't quite get what's going on, but Jaws is here, and he's winning at life. So this one doesn't have that quite, like, the ending kind of a little bit, but I enjoy more the fact that the story it feels complete.
Yes. This is a very well written story that doesn't seem like it. I almost feel like this movie does what the Living Daylights wanted to do. So the Living Daylights had this really convoluted but still down-to-earth plan of embezzlement and drug dealing. And it tried. And everything was connected. And when you watch it a second time, you're like, okay, I guess I get it. Fine.
The plan to fake out the British Secret Service.
Yes, exactly. And to steal from the KGB. And, at the time, I was a little harsh on it. But in retrospect, I get what they were trying to do. And I respect them for trying to do it. And now, as I'm thinking about this movie, they continued to try to do it, and they got better at trying to do it. They were able to set things up that paid off later in the movie, sometimes in a great way, sometimes in just like a decent, okay, well, at least they wrap that up kind of way. Yeah. But, this deception of Sanchez is one of those things that has a really incredible payoff, and we're just going to have to follow it all the way to the end because it just keeps building.
Yeah, I think so this is where the guy comes back to tell Sanchez that he's a British spy. Sanchez already knows. At this point where Bond has kind of slipped into the circle of trust, it felt a lot more like Daniel Craig era, where it's serious. Like Bond is playing a serious role. Yeah. Like, he had some quips before, but the revenge has kind of driven that out of him, and now it's like just full steam ahead on like making sure that the deception goes through. Because then him and Lupe have to hightail it out because they got to go plant the money on the trader. That
this was my favorite Lupe scene. When Lupe is fully on board with the plan, when she sees Bond and she's like, I know you a third time, talk to me. Like, let's hear what's actually going on because I might want in on this. She provides cover. Like, yeah.
But she just does it so, I don't know, willingly. It felt like a stretch because later on she's like, oh, I just love James, and that makes Pam jealous. But it's like, but why did you fall for him, though? I don't understand. Anyway.
The falling for the love triangle is the weakest part of this. If this movie had written Lupe to be an independent woman who just wants to get out of an abusive relationship, I would have been like, she's one of the best characters ever. But the fact that very soon she is going to confront Pam and be like, I slept with Bond, and that's going to create tension, like that is the weakest thing about Lupe's character, and that is the fault of the writers. That, like, I just got done complimenting them for doing such a great job with the overall story.
Yeah.
They straight up struck out with Lupe, at least coming up. But
I remember where she's getting away and the guard giving a smile because, like, she had dropped her bag and he picks it up for her, and then like, flirty. Oh, this poor guard, he might be fed to sharks because he let the guy's girlfriend get away. Oh no.
Man. Yeah, I felt the same. I was like, dude, what? You're just smiling there like a dumb dead idiot. You have no idea that this guy murders his own workers all the time. Like, he might as well be Inspector for how much he kills his own organization.
Yeah. Well, but, I think I enjoy this next bit of so he before they go plant the money, he has to go get the money. Mm-hmm. And at this point, he's accusing Pam of being in on it because the Hong Kong narcotics guy died. So this is the part where it felt like he was way serious, like threatening her. And like, I feel like that's Casino Royale.
It was kind of a jarring scene for me. And, to Timothy Dalton's credit, like, he can play the serious, straight, angry version of Bond really well. Like, there's a reason he was cast in this role. He is deserving of it, and he does a great job at it. But this particular sequence, even knowing that, like, this is necessary to the plot and they're giving us the information we need, it just kind of felt like, get over it, Bond. Like, you don't have any support. You've got Q, and you keep sending him away. Like, stop. Why are you so against your own support system all of a sudden? But eventually, she's on board with it. Because she's the one who swims to the wave crest, right? Like, with the money. Yes, it is. Yes, Bond and Pam are inspectors. They're working at the harbor, and they are going to escort the Isthmus in. And Pam gets up onto the deck where I can't remember all of the terms for things, but she revs the engine and crashes into the port, right in front of Sanchez. And so, like, Sanchez sees another one of Crest's little mistakes happening again. And so while Sanchez and Crest are yelling at each other, Bond and Pam have to get under the boat. And they have to go to the vaults and put in all the money and then somehow quietly escape again.
I mean, it was a bit, it was nice tension, and, like, the bad guys didn't know they were there. So it was a nice execution that wasn't super long like the water scene. But interspersed, Crest is trying to tell the story of how the money got lost. And now the money is in his little, like, pressure chamber. And they escape. The guy's security bouncers or whatever have checked out the ship because Sanchez is paranoid now and spot the money, and so then
where
Crest
it's supposed to be
gets dragged down there, and it's like, oh, well, Bond successfully framed this guy. Now what's going to happen? And I admit I thought nothing was going to happen. Like, he was going to maybe, like, feed him to sharks. Because I was like, I wonder, what if you put him inside this chamber? Would, like, something explode? And
what's this chamber about?
He does, and ups the pressure, hits the valve, and the camera shows, like, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like, that sort of dummy head, but it expands and explodes in a bunch of blood, and I was shocked.
And the quip comes from the villain.
Oh, yeah.
The quip comes from the villain.
Give it, because I don't know if I wrote it down.
So right after the explosion, everybody kind of stands there looking shocked, and Sanchez is pretty proud of himself, and he starts to walk out, and one of the thugs is like, hey, what do you want us to do with the money? And he says, launder it.
I can't remember if he smiles or if he's just so cold that he's like, well, my eyes rolled so hard at that line that I can't remember if he smiled or just walked away. Like, I was blinded at that moment. Oh, and this is probably the movie magic. Bond manages to get back to the island with just off screen, and his alibi is covered. Like, no way Bond could have made it there, put the money in, and gotten back. Like, so the ruse goes through, and Sanchez trusts him more.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, he takes him to the drug thing that the East Asian guys are going to go to, right?
Yeah. And this is the point where Bond sleeps with Lupe, and she then goes to Q and Pam to be like, we made love, and now he's going to this drug lab and he must be rescued. And so, Bond is inside and Pam and Q are outside. Pam seduces the televangelist because apparently we are at the televangelist mission. And it's this like huge ancient temple. I have no idea if it's a real place that they found or if it's mostly matte paintings, but the place looks cool. Like I
feel like the helipad is a matte painting because it was so giant.
It would have fallen apart like if it were a real thing. So that part was absolutely special effects, but at the time maybe it worked, maybe it worked good, but living here in the future, it's pretty jarring. Like you look at it and it looks like breakable terrain in a early aughts video game. You're like, aha, I know where to put the bomb. That's where it is.
Right there.
But yeah, Bond gets into the lab. Pam gets into the temple by seducing the main preacher, but they are both inside now. And I do like how Bond finds a mask in order to kind of hide his identity for a very long time. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, why are you hiding your identity at all? Until Benicio del Toro shows up.
Notices him,
and he, catches him immediately. And Bond has not had any chance to plant any doubt about Dario, del Toro's character. So Bond is really in trouble now. Like his cover has finally been blown. And there is no getting out of it. Fortunately, Pam is about to kick a dude in the nuts and come in and just start wrecking shit. Wrecking stuff. Just in case I need to bleep that out.
I don't think we'd get hit by that, right?
Yeah, I hope
not. I'm trying to think, aside from rescuing Bond from the conveyor belt, I'm like, what does Pam really do?
She really just goes in. Like, she follows everybody else leaving. Bond starts the fire. So they're in this lab. Bond has been discovered. Benicio del Toro has a gun to his back. And then, I don't know why, but something distracts everybody. And Bond grabs the first thing he sees, throws it across the room, and it explodes and starts a fire. Because Bond is super lucky. He has Domino's powers. He is so good.
Manages to start the whole place on fire. Yes. And the I call him the MBA guy. He's got a degree in business for drug dealing.
Businessman.
Says like this place cost $22 million to make, or
I wonder if they said so 32. Concerned at how much it cost. And the Kingpin Sanchez is like, who cares? Shut up.
We got the drugs in the tankers. We'll make it back, and then I guess we'll have to redo our whole drug empire gasoline smuggling.
Also, at some point, and I think it was Lupe who revealed this way back when she revealed the love triangle, we also learned that Sanchez has Sidewinder missiles, which were like a new version of missiles in the 80s. So it's not nukes or anything, but he's also got military grade weapons. Like, so that's just another aspect to Sanchez's confidence right now. Like, he's so smart. He found the guy who had made him doubt his whole organization. And now he's going to, great, burn it all down. I've got my money, I've got my drugs, and I've got my missiles. And so I'm just going to calmly leave. But unfortunately, Pam finds a plane and starts harassing Sanchez from the air. Meanwhile, Bond is on a conveyor belt with a rock breaker, one of those double cylinder things with teeth that breaks things down. And he's hanging on for dear life. Like, that's one of my favorite devices in a movie. It's a real life industrial tool. Sometimes I will watch videos on TikTok. Yeah, just of rocks or metal, things that are really hard getting crunched down by these teeth. And now I'm seeing Bond about to get crunched down. Sanchez says something about when it gets to your feet, you're going to beg me to kill you. And I'm sitting here like, when it gets to his feet, he is dead. Like there is no going up after it has gotten a hold of your feet. It only goes in one direction. So anyway, lots of action, lots of explosions. There's the fire.
I'm trying to find the semi stunt that I'm interested in.
That's right.
It does like a wheelie, but I don't know if that is the stunt that I was thinking about.
Well, it's when they finally escape the lab. And Benicio del Toro, let's just get to the escape of the lab, because I have to say what happens to Benicio del Toro. He's my favorite death in the movie, even more than the vacuum sealed guy blowing up and exploding. Benicio del Toro gets kicked onto the conveyor belt and he's unable to get free. And so he grabs onto Bond, but, he keeps slipping and eventually it gets a hold of his feet. And as I said, once it gets a hold of any part of you, it only goes in one direction. And so he slowly starts getting chomped up. And then we go on the underside where there's just sprays of blood everywhere. It's so gruesome.
Yep. You introduced the killing machine. Someone has to go through it.
Yep. It's Chekhov's grinder. We gotta have someone get ground up in it. And I'm glad that it's Benicio del Toro. A lot of people will look at this movie now that the character of Dario is dead and done, and he didn't have a lot to do in the movie. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that is for the better, and that makes it live on in my head. I think Dario is a lot of fun, and the fact that it's future Oscar award-winning actor Benicio del Toro just makes it even better that here he is in this bit part, and it's going to stand out in your head so much, and I love him for it.
Yeah. Well, they have a car chase. I don't know that it's not awful. I think it's a fact of a Bond movie to have a car chase at some point.
I like that it's with fuel tankers. I like the big wrecks. There's one point, because I think Bond has to he has to jump onto the top of one of the tankers and then hijack it and start driving. And then another tanker tries to run him off the road, but he's able to get that tanker between the mountain and his own truck, and then it crashes and there's a spectacular wreck. At some point there, Bond is able to disconnect from his tanker and roll it into a third tanker.
I know the stunt.
Is that the one with the big fiery explosion? You've got the guys in their truck chasing with all the guns, and then you got Bond in his wheelie ready truck.
There's one semi that does a wheelie after it's detached, but one of the Stinger missiles gets shot at the semi, and Bond hoists it up onto the one side of wheels to let it go by.
And they did it in real life.
I was I feel this there's a Mythbusters episode about it or something, because I've seen that without seeing this movie.
Yeah, that is one of those extremely famous vehicle stunts, getting a semi to drive two-wheeled for an extended period of time. Yeah. It's a lot in slow motion. There's a lot of moving parts. Part of the slow motion is so we can see the missile flying and watch its tail, go under the truck. This is long before we have digital compositing, so it's not like we can take each of these elements and put them together after the fact. We've got to film it, and I like it. I think that holds up, but the wheelie that immediately follows does not.
Not so much. Yeah. The wheelie nuts, I was which stunt am I thinking about? Oh, this one, not the wheelie. The wheelie's like, oh, all right.
The wheelie like pulls you out of it and makes you laugh so hard because it's clearly a truck built for a wheelie because the back tires don't move and there is a hinge at the back tires to make the rest of it go up and down. You know, after having a very cool looking two-wheeled stunt, having this specialty made wheelie semi,
not so great.
Yeah, it pulls you out of it. But
yeah,
you get a cute, well, not cute, you get a fun little death to the thugs when the regular truck drives through the inferno and then goes through the other end and a bunch of dudes are on fire and just like, like, what did you think? You're out in the open air.
Yeah. I feel like this last sequence is just maybe not quite. The explosions are probably the only thing. The explosions and stunts are the thing that keep me interested in seeing what's going to happen, but like Bond just has to catch up to Sanchez and they need to fist fight each other. But the rest of it, it's not my particular favorite.
There's a very long section about Bond versus Sanchez, and I'm just sitting here thinking, like, I don't even remember what happened. Like, I think he catches fire at one point, but I don't remember how or why.
Because
like,
they're like at the tanker together. Everybody else is gone. They get sprayed by this stuff. Oh, because Bond was on the back of it with it open. I can't remember if he burns somebody else, but I think Sanchez has the upper hand for a second, and Bond does the whole, wait a second, whips out his Felix lighter and turns it on.
That's
Isn't it
right.
horrible? It's horrible. Oh, that's your lighter you got from Felix. And it's like, oh, his last name is Lighter.
Yep.
Oh, this is getting killed by a pun.
Yes.
Maybe not the best way to
but
end
at
it.
least Felix got his revenge, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the end of the action. And
there's no extra villain to show up at the end, so it's.
I feel like the gasoline cocaine mix was so that they could have this explosive getaway and fit that pun in. Yes. So I don't love that this might have been all contrived. But yeah, as for the story ending there, I think the revenge happens in a way that is vengeful. So yeah, I'm cool with that.
That's where the movie probably should have ended because, you know, we do have more to the movie. Bond meets up with Felix and Felix is awake again, and so they're able to talk and all that stuff. And Lupe announces that she's going to stay on Isthmus, so, you know, the love triangle isn't an issue anymore because Bond can just go off with Pam. And Bond is crying because I guess Lupe spoke to him. So,
something. For all of the cons of the end, the post fight scene, there's one shining moment where Bond sees Pam down below near some pool, and I'm like, how high up is it from that pool? Because that is a heck of a jump. But Bond just leaps off the edge and dives in. I'm like, good stunt work. Good job. That seems like a pretty bold jump.
I used to go to those restaurants where they would have cliff divers indoors, and that's kind of what it looked like. Like they got a cliff diver to jump into that pool. But man, how deep is that pool? Because like,
but they almost. I think they still lost me in the end this whole party scene and getting Pam. He does get there and they I guess make up and he kisses her and it pans off to this fish statue, which I almost bet there was discussion of we're gonna make it blink so that you know there's a camera in there that M has access to.
Yes. so that we continue having M watching.
they don't do it. I was, for a split second, sure that something was going to, like that. Oh, it blinked. It winked at them. Like, oh no. Oh, end credits. And we're done.
Yeah, it's... so for me, the weakest parts are the beginning and end. And before we get into the ratings themselves, we need to briefly talk about the history that did not happen. So we're on our 16th movie. There was supposed to be, in 1991, a 17th movie. It never got a title. It never got a script. It never got anything. But Timothy Dalton was signed on for 3 movies with the option to do more if he wanted to. But then the rights for the ownership of the franchise came in dispute. So a lot of people will point to Timothy Dalton and be like, well, he got out of his contract, so he must be the reason the movie was not made. No.
Yeah.
It was the legal troubles for ownership of it that blew them way past 1991. And it was as they were preparing for the next one, they approached Timothy Dalton. He got out of his contract because too much time had passed and he was just done with it. But on top of that, one of the writers, the writer that I mentioned at the very beginning, Richard Maybaum, he also died. And he had been, a strong creative voice for many of these movies. And so after this movie and after the legal troubles and after the contract dispute and after the death of the writer, the producers were just like, let's start over. Like, new actor, new franchise. We don't need to behold ourselves to what came before. We can just start over from scratch here. And that's what we're going to do with the next movie. But there is a version of reality where those legal troubles about ownership never came up. And we had a third Timothy Dalton movie. And I want that reality. I think he would have been amazing in a third movie.
This one was good. I think a third one could have stuck with the formula. Maybe not have a love triangle, maybe not have any underwater, but, gadgets, intrigue. Doesn't necessarily have to be a world-ending crisis.
Yeah, it can still be a John Glenn small stakes type adventure, but we've still got a really charismatic, very cool, very violent version of Bond. A lot of people say Timothy Dalton's Bond is probably closest to the books. And I think it was Live and Let Die, the racist one that neither of us really enjoyed. That was the book where Felix Leiter is killed by being fed to sharks. So in the books, Felix Leiter dies. He has a mortal ending, and it is from being fed to sharks. When that movie came up, that was way too violent, and so they skipped on that portion of the story, and Felix Leiter survived the movie. Felix survived this movie as well, but we finally got to see a true to the books Felix getting eaten by sharks.
By sharks. Halfway. Half eaten.
Yes. So this is, often criticized as being one of the most violent movies in something of a kind of violent franchise. It's a license to kill. The dude kills a lot of people.
See, I can credit that argument and say that I may have been expecting more blood in all of the previous Bonds combined, because the fact that we, I think in the racist one, Bond gets cut while he's tied up, and that's like, oh, this is like the third time Bond has ever been bloodied.
Yeah. Like we've never seen him bleed until this movie.
It was, so, I mean, yes, this one is more violent. It does feel like they kicked it up past 10. Like, this is exploding heads and bitten off legs.
Yes.
But, I mean, the middle ground, I would have also been fine with. Like, but he is a violent crime lord, so I mean,
yeah, like violence begets violence, and James Bond is the most violent, even though he's never been until this point.
I don't know if GoldenEye has much like blood happening on screen. People get bloodied, but then like
I don't think there's going to be a lot of brutal deaths.
Exploding, yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to have someone being crushed or vacuumed to death. Like, there will be some pretty creative deaths in the Brosnan era, but it's been a long, long time since I have seen GoldenEye, but the most violent death I can think of is the last one, where the guy is thrown into the exploding satellite. We don't see any blood or anything. The fire comes to meet him before anything happens. But when I think about Timothy Dalton, I kind of think that is the direction that Daniel Craig went in. Like, I don't remember very well what Pierce Brosnan did, but I always kind of get a bit of a Sean Connery, Roger Moore type vibe, where he's going for the super charming, very into the ladies type of Bond. And then Daniel Craig was the more action forward, very serious, very few quips. I've got a license to kill and I'm going to use it type of Bond. Whereas Timothy Dalton, he was kind of a bit more of that. Like he was that plus ultra violence.
Just letting the credits roll and it says James Bond will return.
Yep.
And that was a lie.
That was a lie. James Bond will be rebooted, but he's not going to return. So, yeah, we've talked about the unmade 17th movie. There will obviously be a 17th movie. That's next week's episode. But for where we are living now, if someone was in 1989, they see that at the end of the credits, they're going to have to wait 6 years before they get to see James Bond again. And that
seems like a long time. But
it's the longest gap between movies. And we'll see what happens with Amazon purchasing it, because the last movie was 2021. And here we live in 2025. So we're only at like a 4-year gap at this point, but give us 3 more years of waiting for a Bond movie and we will have hit the longest gap.
Who will it be? Well, I am ready to review.
All right. Well, let's do it. On this podcast, we do ratings, not grades. The primary difference is where you find your average. In a grade, you would say a 7 out of 10 is the average because you don't want a student's feelings to be hurt when they do poorly. But in reality, the 5 out of the 10 should be the average. That is the middle of this number spread. So when we say a movie is a 5 out of 10, we're saying it is average. The average audience might like it, might dislike it, but most people going into it are going to come away from it being like, it was a movie. So with all of that said, Justin, where do you put License to Kill?
I really enjoyed it on my only time through. I think it was better plotted, I think would be the way to say it. Things that were teased, I guess, wrapped up their thread and paid off. So I think that elevates the score a bit. I think some of the choices kind of were made to just wrap up the movie. Like the last little bit was like, oh, well, he needs to pick between the two of them and he's going to pick this one, but she has to storm away before he picks hers. So this is going to happen. Like, okay. But like they kind of had a good thing going. I'm like, they could have just, I don't know. I feel like it's much better as a send-off than all the other ones. It is tied for me with Secret Service at 7.
I think that's fair, and I thought about going as high as a 7 while we were talking. So as I teased to, my number went up midway through our discussion. I came into this at a solid 5. I was like, this is middle of the road Bond. It has some very good ideas and some very good imagery that will stick in your head. But I don't know if the writing's all there. I don't know if I like all of the characters. I don't know if I like all the plot beats. And then as we're talking about it, and I realize that like there are some parts of this that are so good. I love the heist in the middle of the movie where it essentially becomes an Ocean's 11 movie and Bond is the bad guy who's going to rob this dude blind. I think that might be one of my favorite concepts in all of the movies that we have watched so far. It's not the whole movie. It's only like a B plot in terms of the big picture of the movie, but it works so well for me that I'm like, that is peak Bond. That's such a good idea. So I'm confident at putting it at a 6. The very beginning, the very ending, those are the weakest parts. They genuinely don't work. They're just kind of there, and they, the very beginning, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to like this movie. The very end, I was like, dang it, they fumbled the ball right there at the end. But there's a chunk in the middle where we are looking at a very good Bond movie, and I don't want to brush that over. I don't want to deny the fact that that exists. So for me, it's a 6 out of 10. It could be a 7 if the beginning and the end were, just even a little bit better.
It's understandable.
That's where I'm at. I wanted to give it an 8. I wanted to be like, this is an 8. This was the underrated movie. Everybody should watch it. But frankly, it's not as good as nostalgia tells me it is. It's, it's kind of an average movie, but at the same time, like when you look at everybody else's time as Bond, Timothy Dalton was the most consistent. He only had 2 movies, but both of them were good movies.
Decent, good.
Yeah.
Yep.
People hated them at the time. A lot of people kind of forget that Timothy Dalton exists. They're more likely to remember the one-time George Lazenby than the 2-time Timothy Dalton. And they're wrong. They're wrong for doing that. You got to give Dalton another shot. He's a much better Bond than you remember.
I think I thought that he had done more Bonds because I was looking. I have a small list of the ratings I've given, and I was like, maybe he did that one too. It's improved. And like, it's just the other one.
Yep.
Just the 2 geese, Yeah.
He only gets the 2 of them.
Actually, just the one.
Yeah. But, for an average show rating of a 6.5, it's an improvement over The Living Daylights. And I think that is absolutely true. I don't like to do decimal ratings, but if I did, this would be the one that would be a 6.5 for me. Just because, it is better than The Living Daylights.
Mm-hmm.
But I think both movies are surprisingly consistent. And they both do what they do really well, while also having moments that you're just like, this is so dumb.
Yep, I agree.
Now, I don't want to plant doubt in your head, but I'm going to anyway, and warn you that if memory serves, Brosnan has an interesting career as Bond where he starts at the peak and then goes downhill with every movie.
I haven't heard anything good about the other ones, and I think I only remember GoldenEye.
I cannot remember which one it was, but it was one of the last 2 movies where there's this early CG sequence that is so bad, even at the time. Like, you look at other movies that had heavy CG at the same time that this Brosnan movie had it, and it's so bad, and it just pulls you out, and the whole movie can never recover after they have proven that they just don't respect your time enough to at least make one more polish on their CG.
Yeah. We'll have to see. Yep, next week will be just fine, though.
It could be one of these things where, time has been the advantage to these movies. I've only seen most of them once. I have seen GoldenEye maybe 3 times, but I have played the video game dozens of times. So my knowledge of GoldenEye is more about pixelated adventures than the movie adventure.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them, I think I've only ever seen once a piece. But all right, we have made it to the end of another one. If you would like to get in touch with us, there are multiple ways to do it, but the best way to do it is to comment, review, or rate, or share on whatever platform you are currently using to listen to this podcast. You've made it this far. Why not engage on that platform? Like if you're on Spotify, leave a comment. If you're on Apple, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe. All of that stuff helps. If you want to share the shorts for each of the episodes, we upload those to YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as Potato Chip Pictures. And finally, if you want to email us, you've got maybe a few more words to say, send us an email at potatochippicturespod@gmail.com. And I think, is there anything that I'm missing? I think I wrapped it up.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think we're covered.
Right. Well, then I am excited to finally say Potato Chip Pictures and James Bond will return in GoldenEye. Oh my gosh, we've been waiting so long.
It's been on the radar for the whole time.
Yep, that has been the goalpost that both Justin and I have been looking towards. That has been our horizon, and next week you get to join us for it. So thank you guys so much for listening. Goodbye!
Bye!